So there's a lot of different ways to bend strings on the guitar. This is by no means going to be a comprehensive video. I just want to share with you a few ideas so that you can have more tools in your toolbox when you go to play. And go practice these. They're great ways to sound better than you actually are and fill up a solo with not a whole lot of notes and still actually sound good. So we're going to do this in the key of A, mainly because that's what the backing track is in. And I'm going to kind of show you how some of these can work together in a solo towards the end of the video. Going to be in the key of A around this shape, which is our major pentatonic shape. But I don't want to worry about all of these notes. Instead, I just want to focus on a couple of notes. So let's just take two for right now. Let's take the second fret on the G string. That's our A note. That's our root note. And then we'll use the fourth fret on the G string, because that's the one I'm going to be bending. And the most common bend that I hear is simply, bending up to a note. So say I'm bending this fourth fret up to this sixth fret. And then obviously we can release that back down and then go back to our root note. Obviously this is elementary for a lot of us, but something to think about when you're doing these bends. You can either hit it once, or you can hit it twice. And both give a different sound. Again, it's the same lick, but if you play it differently, it's going to sound different. Hitting it once and just releasing it as opposed to hitting it twice. Again, different tools in the toolbox to make, the same lick sound a little different. So keep that in mind. Anytime you play a lick, try to play it a slightly different way. Still going to be the same lick. You don't have to learn a whole bunch of licks, and you end up sounding better and having more licks, even though they're just variations on the simple ones. So you can hit it once, you can hit it twice, and you can put these on repeat. I like to think of it like put them on a loop. If you find a lick you like, play it even faster. So sit and practice these on a loop. They can fill up space again inside of a solo. Another thing to keep in mind anytime you're doing bends, on this one, we're focusing on kind of bending up to a particular note, but you don't have to. You can bend to the spaces in between the notes. And that's one of the interesting things about guitar that a lot of other instruments can't do, is we can kind of bend and kind of blur notes together, which is an interesting sound. And remember as well, you don't have to just hit the string one time. You can kind of, whatever rhythm is in your head that you're wanting to get out to the strings, sometimes, on these bends, you can use these bends to get that rhythm onto the strings, even if it's not necessarily the notes that you're looking for. So, for example, if I've got like a shuffle blues beat, or a rock beat like this, so I can use these bends and I'm just not really worried about, any particular note that I'm bending to, but I'm using that more as a way to get the rhythm that's in my head out onto the strings. So another thing I hear all the time is to say bend a note up, like this fourth fret to the sixth fret like we did to start with, and hit another note. So here I'm bending and I'm kind of using all three of these fingers because I'm further down on the fretboard and it's harder to bend down here. And I'm catching this fifth fret on the B string with my pinky. So the actual bend lick is the same as we started with. I'm just putting an extra note, an extra string in between that bend. So that is a neat thing to do, and when you're down here in this major pentatonic, you can actually add this 5th fret on the E string as well, if your fingers are able to do that. Get that real kind of country bend. But you can play around with that as well and make it a rock sound. You know, just play around with it to a backing track. You'll see what I'm talking about. But, you know, doing bends like that and hitting notes in between, that's a really interesting idea. And again, you can kind of put this on repeat, you know, in lots of different ways. You know, you can bend up and bend down each time. Or what I do a lot is just bend up, hit that note, and bend up again. So we're kind of putting that nice lick on repeat, and once again filling up space. And when I'm ready to stop, then I go back to my root note. Now we can take this same idea. Remember, I talk about this all the time, that if you take any major pattern, you know, and you move it up 3 frets, you get the minor pattern. So that same pattern that we were playing down here to be major pentatonic, now it be minor pentatonic. But I can bend the same strings in the same place in the minor pentatonic that I could the major. The only difference is that my root note is no longer where my pointer finger is. My root note's going to be the 7th fret on the D string. So whenever I'm kind of ready to go in the lick, I'm going to have to go back to my A note, the 7th fret on the D string. But otherwise, I can do the same exact bends I was doing down here, up 3 frets, and now they're going to sound more blues or rock. So again, that's that same, you know, bend up 2 frets. Only I don't stop here, I go back to my root note, my A note, the 7th fret on the D string. Again, you can put this on repeat. You can even bend up and catch this 8th fret here on the B string. Now, another thing I like to do, especially if I'm here in the minor pentatonic, is this note that I'm hitting with my pointer finger. A lot of times I'll bend it slightly, like not necessarily up to any particular note, just kind of bend it out of tune before I go back to my root note. And that can be a lick in and of itself if it's used the right way. Now, another lick that I use quite often is to bend this 8th fret on the B string in this minor pentatonic shape up to my A note, my root note, which is here on the 10th fret. So I'll bend that up a lot of times, but then I'll also do something kind of unique. I don't remember where I stole this from, but a lot of people do this. They'll bend it up to that note, bend it back down, and then bend it back up. So it's kind of an interesting sound, and it does take a little bit of practice, but it's a really neat idea. So if you're playing around here, it adds a little flavor to bend up to that note, release it, and then bend back up to it. And you got to push pretty hard to continue to get that sound out. You got to hit it pretty hard, and you got to do it, kind of fast, or have some distortion on so that it'll kind of sustain. But that's a neat idea, to bend up, bend back down, and then bend up again. So play around with that one. That one can actually be a whole lot of fun. Another thing I'll do is I'll come up here inside my B.B. King box. Remember, when we were here, we were bending up to our root notes. So if I put my pointer finger on the 10th fret of the B string, now that's my A note, and I can still bend just like I did down here. It's actually the same notes, The only difference is if I want to hit another string, you know, down here we were having to go one fret up with that note we caught with our pinky. But if I'm here, I can actually put it on the same fret. So right underneath my finger, both right here on the 12th fret. And I can do that. And something that, you know, I first heard on Call Me the Breeze by Leonard Skinner was this lick right here. And that's a really neat lick to just play around with. So again, just different ideas, different things you can do, different ways that you can bend. Remember, you don't have to just hit it once. You know, you can sit there and you can hit these bends multiple times. Don't necessarily worry about bending to, you know, some particular note all the time. Remember, one of the great things about guitar is that you can actually bend to those spaces in between the notes and kind of blur the lines a little bit. But these are great ideas to fill up space in a solo and still actually sound good while not actually having to, you know, run a whole bunch of scales or learn a whole bunch of patterns. You're really just doing these simple bend ideas. So play around with them, play around with different combinations of notes. I really do hope this helps. And as always, if you need something, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you.